All right, if you want to automate and scale your wholesaling business, these are the 6 stages that you need to follow. Welcome back to Wholesaling 101. Let's talk about the 6 stages of your wholesaling business. This is going to be video number 1 of a series of 7 videos where I break down the actual wholesaling business blueprint, right? These are the 6 stages that you need to have in place to automate, delegate, and keep your business running so you can take your time back, all right? Every time we talk about creating a business, building a business, this is what we're referring to, right? It's really cool when you're able to step away from your business and then get deals locked, have those conversations, have your team, be working on those deals as they're coming in, negotiate, present offers, send offers out, get contracts in, get those deals sold, and then you see the revenue coming into your bank account on a regular basis, right? There's a way to create that in a very, very methodical way, and that's what this series is about, right? I want to give you the 6 stages that you need to follow, right? And we're gonna do that in order. So in this video, we're gonna do an overview of what the whole thing looks like, and then we're gonna dive deep and then break each one down as we go along, right? Let's get real. Now it's more important than ever to have a systematic approach to your wholesale business. If you've been hustling through deals over the last 3 to 5 years, that was one way of doing it, right? But things are getting more challenging as we progress. Things are getting tougher. Buyers are getting more conservative, right? Sellers are starting to become a little bit more open in terms of negotiating that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the challenge is just pivoting over to the buyer side. So it's more important than ever to really have a systematic approach to your business. How are you keeping up with the leads, right? How are you managing those leads? How are you making sure that those leads don't fall through the cracks? And then what happens, when you pre-qualify somebody? What does that conversation look like? Now, are you just having one strategy to close on deals, or do you have multiple strategies and solutions that you can present over to the buyer so your closing ratio can go up, right? Those are the types of questions that are going to be the most important right now. Why? Because you can't be a one-trick pony anymore, and it's more important than ever to have multiple solutions, right, for sellers. Why? Because the landscape is just changing. Now, with that being said, this is the exact same process that we follow in my business. We generate an average of 80 to 120 leads on a weekly basis because of this process, and we're able to bring anywhere from 15 to 20 deals a month because of this process, right? This thing is the machine that allows me to thrive in whatever area of my life I want to thrive in, right? Sometimes I want to take vacations. Sometimes I just want to, come in and then dive deep into other projects that I'm working on. But at the end of the day, having this as a cornerstone, having this as a backbone to my operations, really allows me to get that time back and that freedom, that financial freedom that we're all, thriving for, right? Now, what that looks like, it's totally up to you. The reality, though, is that you got to have a process in place. You have to have a way to systemize the process and really follow through, right? Have high degrees of accountability as you're going through all of this. So we're going to dive into an overview of what the 6 stages look like. And then on the following videos, we're going to be diving deeper into each one of them. All right, now let's dive into the wholesaling business blueprint, right? That's what this is all about. Now, if you want to get a free download of what this whole thing looks like, go to reiwholesaling.com. That's reiwholesaling.com. And then drop your email in there, and then you're going to get a free PDF download of what this whole process looks like. So with that being said, stage number 1 of the wholesaling business blueprint is going to be sourcing. Okay, this is the first thing that you have to have in your business. You have to source the leads. You have to have a way of having a consistent lead flow. All right, that's the key word here: consistency. All right, we're not negotiating anything. We're not pre-qualifying anything. We're not doing anything. We're just the only thing that's happening during the sourcing stage is gauging for interest. So here, what we're doing is we're just gauging for seller interest, okay? That's what we're looking for, seller interest. There's multiple ways of doing this. All right, the first one of my favorites, is always gonna be cold calling. It's tried and tested, and it's really one of the fastest ways to start having conversations about deals, right? Now, if you're cold calling, it can be a little bit rough. So there has to be a right way of cold calling. You can't just, pick up the phone and start dialing numbers. There is a methodical way of dealing with that kind of stuff, right? So what kind of data are we pulling? What kind of metrics are we looking for in the data? What kind of dialer are we using? What are the settings on that dialer? And how can I maximize the time that I'm actually putting into the cold calling process so I can have more conversations in a more optimal way, right? So that's one way of doing it. Another way of sourcing leads is going to be through text messaging, SMS. SMS is still working. There's a specific platform that we use to generate a ton of leads on a weekly basis, with certain settings on there, and certain types of messages that we send out on a regular basis. Now you can supplement all this stuff with PPC campaigns, with direct mail. I mean, there's a lot of marketing avenues, right, that we can take on as we're going through the process of sourcing the leads. At the end of the day, the important thing to keep in mind here is that we're only gauging for interest. We are not pre-qualifying. We're not doing anything. When you're at stage 1, which is the sourcing stage, you're just gauging for interest, right? So let's make that clear. There's no pre-qualification. Now, say that you reach 1,000 people, right, while you're sourcing. Maybe 100 of those people are going to be interested, and they say, okay, cool, give me an offer. I want $1 million for my house. It doesn't matter how much they want, right? We're not doing any pre-qualification or anything like that. But 100 people raise their hand. Now moves on to stage 2, which is going to be converting. Okay, this is where you have a deeper conversation. But out of those 1,000 that you reached out to, 100 became leads. Before that, it was just records, right? But 100 became leads. Now you can spend a little bit more time having qualifying conversations. And we qualify based on the 4 pillars of pre-qualification: condition, timeline, motivation, and price, right? And there's a specific way to have that conversation so you get the most information in a very short period of time, all right? And again, here what's going on is that we're converting. We're trying to qualify and convert leads to prospect, all right? Stage 2. So just so you have an idea of what the numbers look like. Say that in the sourcing stage, you reached 1,000 people, 100 of them wanted to talk about an offer. You went through the qualifying process, and out of that, maybe 10 are actually people that you could do something with, right? So you went from dealing with 1,000 people to dealing with 10 people. Now you went from 1,000 records to 100 leads to 10 prospects, all right? So it's important to have that big difference, because you want to spend your time really digging into the deals and the properties and the analysis that the prospects have. You don't want to spend all that time with the records when you're cold calling, because it's not giving you the highest and best use over time, right? So having segmentations like this is important for a couple of reasons, all right? One is going to be, of course, you optimize the operation. You're moving a lot faster. There's leads that don't fall through the cracks, and the process becomes, very, very clear, especially for the team that you start hiring as you progress. And then 2, there's a high degree of accountability. When you know that you're hiring for a sourcing role, you know exactly what that means, right? You know exactly what kind of responsibilities and things fall into that specific role. When you know you're hiring for a converting role, you know what skills need to be in place for that role. Now, stage 3, that being said, stage 3 is acquiring. So you went from leads to prospects, and now you're actually having negotiation conversations with the sellers. This is where acquisition people live, right? You don't want to waste your acquisition managers or your acquisition reps if you're hiring, it might be you, right, at first. But you don't want to waste, if you have a team, you don't want to waste their skills, their talent, and their focus sourcing leads, right? And just going through a bunch of endless, records when you have somebody that can close. But you want to keep them closing. And if they don't have enough shots to take, you know that you need to go one step back and increase the prospects, or go one step back and increase the leads, right? So it's a methodical approach, and it's a linear approach. You start sourcing, and then you convert, and then you go to acquisitions. Now, big thing in acquisitions, all right? If you are just closing deals through one strategy, which is the wholesale stuff, that stuff is not working anymore. Wholesale works, right? But you can't be a one-trick pony. You have to have multiple ways of negotiating deals. You have to have multiple ways of coming about solutions for sellers, because people have different needs, but they also have a very different understanding. People get bombarded by real estate investors all the time. And it's people that drop an offer here. They're dropping the wholesale offer. They can't take the number, and then they walk away, right? But if you are the person who can present a wholesale offer, and if that doesn't work, you can pivot into an option offer. And if that doesn't work, you pivot into a creative financing deal. And if that doesn't work, you can pivot into an innovation deal. And if that doesn't work, you can pivot into another strategy, just regular retail listing. You become the go-to person for that, for that seller, right? And that's really what you want. You want to have multiple tools in your belt. Those are the stuff that we use in my business as we're having these seller conversations, right? We're not just a one-trick pony, but it's important to have the methodical process for it, right? What kind of conversation are you going to be having for each one of them? How are you going to increase your closing ratio? And how are you going to monetize on every single one of the leads that comes your way? Like, that's very, very, very important, right? We can't be a one-trick pony anymore. You have to step up your acquisitions game. And the way that you do that is by understanding different strategies of negotiation as you're going through the process, different structure of deals. When you see a deal, like, what can happen with it, right? We're not convincing any sellers to sell their property. We're trying to find solutions. And the better prepared we are to present offers and structure deals that way, the more shots we're going to have at actually getting deals done, right? So stage 4, disposition process. All right, what is that? You have different dispo strategies. There's not just, a way of putting stuff on an email blast and then sending it out. You may sell, some properties like that, but you have to be more proactive, especially in the current climate and everything that we're going through right now. Buyers are being a lot more conservative, and there's different strategies that you can come about to structure your deals and dispo more deals in a better way, right? So your buyer's list is also happening. You have to be proactive about building the buyer's list. It's no longer one of those things that you can be passive about. What campaigns are you actually incorporating into your process already to reach a wider audience of buyers? What are you doing, right? What does that look like? There's specific steps that we take in the dispositions process, and all this plays into that role. And of course, your entire dispo process. There's for example, in the Wholesaling Business Blueprint, we have a 21-day process. It's a very methodical 21-day process of things that we do on day 1, specific things that we do on day 2, specific things that we do on day 3. If the property hasn't moved on day 4 yet, then we have to come in and then do this, other things. So it's a very methodical way of aligning the dispositions process, making sure that you're selling the properties for top dollar, because at the end of the day, like, that's what matters, right? We're negotiating deals, we're marketing for deals, we're locking down deals, we're structuring all these things, but if we can't sell them, none of that matters. So dispo process is a big, big, big part of it. And really having a method behind the madness is what gets you over to that next level stuff. Now, most wholesale businesses stop here. They stop the dispo process. People get, they get the settlement statement. We get super happy, go buy a bottle of whatever, and then party, right? And then celebrate. Cool, yeah, we got a deal. Nice. 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. And then they go back to step 1, which is sourcing, then converting, acquisitions, and dispo, right? And then they stay on that process. And I think most people leave out 2 of the most important steps out there, which is step number 5, or stage 5, which is the measuring, right? You want to track everything that you do. You want to track your KPIs. There's specific things that matter, specific metrics and KPIs, key performance indicators, that matter in your business. There's certain things that you must follow, that you must track to the T, so you understand how you're performing. You understand where the deficits are, the stuff that you can come in and improve, right? We have a whole list of that kind of stuff in place, but it's important to understand what things you can tweak, what things you can improve, what things you can get rid of and not spend money on. So your whole operation, its entirety, it improves, it gets better. At the end of the day, you want to optimize. Before you start delegating and automating things, you want to make sure that your operation is running lean. You don't want to have this big, heavy operation that's big on expenses because you're not tracking anything, or you have no idea, what your closing ratios are. You have no idea what your cost per lead is, and the rest of the metrics that are very, very important. So stage 5 is the measuring process, and the big thing is to use all that information so you can take it into stage 6. And actually have improvement sessions, okay? This is where you start putting together your team. This is where you figure out how to run your meetings. This is where you dive into the principles of accountability and what are we looking for in terms of, team and operation and results, and who's responsible for what, right, in the business. You gotta have that if you're gonna create an operation that actually works by itself. If you want a business where you can walk away and I don't know, take a 2-week vacation, whatnot, the thing's still producing, it's pumping out deals, and people are working and doing their thing, thriving within your space. This is the way that you go about it, right? You get to a point where you automate and delegate because you're tracking all your metrics, you're tracking your KPIs, and you're having those improvement sessions, which happen at this stage, right? You can't scale. The big word here is going to be scale, right? People talk about scaling all the time. I think it's a very premature word a lot of times. To kind of start throwing out there, scale. If you're running a heavy operation, think about it this way, right? If you're running a heavy operation, you're going to scale that heaviness. You either scale systems and processes or you scale chaos. If you have chaos in your business, if you're running around like a crazy person, but you want to get more deals done, and you throw more money into it because you close a few deals and whatnot, you're going to scale that headache. Your headache is just going to get bigger. You're going to be running around more like a crazy person still, because you don't have you don't have that systematic approach in place. So it's important to understand that you can scale business, strategies and tactics and processes, or you can scale chaos. All right, so the choice is yours. These are the 6 steps that allow you, or 6 stages that allow you to run your business like a business. It's possible to create a wholesaling operation that is consistent, that is predictable, and that really gives you that financial freedom that you're looking for, right? If you go about it right. It's not going to happen overnight, and it takes a while to get to that space. But it is possible to get there, especially if you're cutting the learning curve, right? So if you want to find out more, go to reiwholesaling.com, download the PDF, take a look at the coaching program. We have a coaching program in there as well, where we go over every single one of the steps. Now, make sure that you check out our next Wholesaling 101 video, because we're going to be breaking down the sourcing process, okay? What we do in my business to source deals and to generate anywhere from 80 to 120 leads on a regular basis every single week, like clockwork, right? Acquisition has to have enough deals to work on. And the way that we go about that is to make sure that we are sourcing enough stuff, we're converting enough stuff, pre-qualifying enough stuff, so it makes it over to acquisitions and deals get locked and deals get sold, all right? So we're gonna be dropping the next video on the sourcing stage next week. Stay focused, you got this.